Welcome to the Foundry by Forge College. I'm your host, and today we're rolling up our sleeves and putting on our hard hats. In our previous explainer, Capstone Kickoff, Scope and Requirements, we laid out exactly what we're building for our guided project. Now, we need the engineering schematics. We're taking those isolated manual deploy scripts and transforming them into a fully automated high-tech factory assembly line. No more clicking buttons and crossing fingers. We're building a machine that builds our project for us.
Here's the engineering schematic for today. We're covering 6 major zones: the capstone blueprint, the testing assembly line, the matrix of multiple tests, reproducibility and forked state, artifacts and promotion gates, and finally, our next steps. Let's get right to work.
Starting off in Zone 1, the capstone pipeline blueprint. We're moving from just knowing what we want to build to actually designing the architectural flow of how our code gets there safely.
Now, you might be asking, why go through all the trouble of building a complex pipeline? Well, we've all used the absolute most famous excuse in software engineering, but it worked on my machine. It's a classic, right? The problem is, manual deployments rely on human memory, which, let's be honest, is about as reliable as a chocolate teapot. It leads to chaotic, inconsistent states, especially in the Web3 space. Building a pipeline eliminates that my machine variable entirely.
And that brings us to our core workflow. A testing deployment workflow is the staged automation that moves code from your local tests all the way to production environments predictably and reliably. Think of it like a strict automated factory. Your raw code enters one end and it gets poked, prodded, inspected, and packaged by robotic arms long before it ever sees the sunlight of a production environment.
Let's step into the first operational zone of this factory, the testing assembly line. This is the gauntlet where your code really has to prove its worth. Notice the clear logical flow of our continuous integration, or CI, jobs. Look closely at the dependencies here. We always start with a setup job to install our tools. Our testing jobs just won't run without it, kind of like how you can't start a factory without actually turning the power on. Next, the coverage job won't even wake up until both the JavaScript and Rust test suites finish. And finally, absolutely nothing gets packaged until all tests and coverage pass successfully. It's a mathematically precise domino effect. By separating our concerns on this assembly line, so running our JavaScript tests and our Rust Forge tests in parallel tracks, we achieve 2 massive wins. First, it is a whole lot faster. Second, we can fail fast. If a specific suite breaks, our factory conveyor belt halts immediately, sounding the alarm exactly where the defect is. We don't have to wait for the entire factory to finish a doomed cycle just to find out something was broken an hour ago.
Moving deeper into the blueprint, we arrive at Zone 3, the matrix of multiple tests. Because testing on just one pristine, perfect setup simply isn't enough in the real world.
We need to stress test our code across varying environments. We don't just run one type of test, we run a matrix. We test across different node versions like 14, 16, and 18. We run highly isolated unit tests, much broader integration tests, and full end-to-end system tests. In fact, throughout the Forge College modules, we constantly emphasize that a robust CI matrix like this is your ultimate safety net. It absolutely guarantees your code can survive the wild before it actually moves forward.
Next up is Zone 4, reproducibility and forked state. This directly addresses one of the absolute biggest headaches you will ever face in Web3 testing.
So how do we make sure our integration tests are actually reliable when blockchains are constantly moving and changing? Enter the forked integration test. This means running tests against a pinned block number to ensure deterministic, replayable results. If you play video games, think of a forked state like saving your game right before a massive boss fight. No matter how many times you lose and have to reload, the boss is in the exact same spot with the exact same health. It lets you retry the exact same scenario predictably every single time.
So the absolutely crucial rule here is to avoid reliance on live mainnet state. Live state is completely chaotic. Someone else's random transaction could sweep through and totally ruin your test. By recording variables, like your specific fork block number, you lock the environment in place. Your tests become 100% reproducible, which is essential for our automated factory to actually trust the results it's getting.
Let's move along to Zone 5. The code has survived the gauntlet of tests, and now it's time to box it up with artifacts and promotion gates. What exactly are we boxing up here? An artifact. In our pipeline, an artifact is a deterministic, compiled output bundled with metadata and solution documentation representing a release candidate. Picture a securely sealed, tamper-proof shipping box. Once the code is inside this box, it absolutely cannot be changed. It is sealed tight and ready to be shipped out of the testing factory.
But a box is pretty useless without a shipping label, right? Every artifact must have mandatory metadata attached to it for flawless auditing. We need the exact commit hash, the pipeline run ID, the block number we forked, the exact compiler version we used, and the ID of the key that signed it. If something goes terribly wrong in production 6 months from now, this little label tells you exactly how, when, and by whom this specific box was built.
Let's pull back and put it all together into a 6-step promotion flow. We start with a source event, like opening a pull request. We run our fork tests, check our coverage, then build and package the artifact. Step 5 is crucial. We cryptographically sign and store it. Finally, step 6, promotion gates. These are basically the burly security guards at the end of our factory line. They verify the artifact signature and ensure all previous steps passed before they open the loading dock doors and allow the actual deployment to proceed.
And that brings us to the core philosophy of this entire architecture. Reproducibility is the backbone of trust. If you can rerun a test with the same block, compile it with the same versions, and get the exact same bytecode hash at the end, you've removed all ambiguity. You trust the pipeline, which means you can sleep easy at night trusting the deployment.
Which brings us to our final zone, next steps for deployment. It is time to roll up these engineering blueprints and start pouring the concrete.
Before our next hands-on coding lesson, you have 3 concrete action items. First, gather up all those existing hardhat and forge scripts you built in earlier lessons. Second, define your canonical artifact names. Decide exactly what you are going to call those tamper-proof boxes. And third, configure your CI system's secure secrets so you can actually sign those keys securely. Get your CI environments prepared. The architectural planning we just did right here directly maps to the actual YAML and deployment scripts you're going to write next. We are taking this factory blueprint and turning it into a fully functional reality.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Is your raw code ready to survive the automated assembly line? It's a daunting thought for sure, but with the pipeline we've just designed together, you'll know for certain that if it survives, it's truly ready for the world. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. I highly encourage you to head over to forge.college to dive deeper into this subject and explore a wealth of other fascinating Web3 related topics. Keep building, keep automating, and I'll see you in the next lesson.